Well, we are continuing our special coverage of the hostilities between Israel and Iran. There's been no let-up in the exchange of strikes as the death toll continues to climb. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian is urging his country to unite as Israeli attacks cause extensive damage in major cities. At least 224 people have now been killed in Iran since Friday.
We are not the aggressors, yet we made it clear that we are required than any time before to stand together, stand united. All our countrymen must join hands, stand together, hand in hand, in the face of this ruthless belligerence.
Well, at least 20 people have been killed in Israel since Friday. The latest wave of Iranian attacks targeted the major cities of Tel Aviv and Haifa. Suburbs and towns around Tel Aviv were also hit in the attack. In Bnei Brak, residential buildings and cars, as you can see there, were damaged, as well as a synagogue. Israel's defense minister said Tehran residents, quote, would pay the price soon. And the U.S. Embassy branch office in Tel Aviv was closed on Monday after overnight attacks. It sustained what the ambassador described as minor damage. He said no U.S. personnel were harmed. Well, here's a report now from Osama bin Javed with a recap of all the latest exchanges of attacks.
Another strike in Haifa. Iranian missiles hit near the city's energy plant. Israel's main port city is being targeted by Iran after Israel attacked Iranian oil facilities. Air defense systems in Tel Aviv were triggered early on Monday morning to intercept Iranian missiles. Air raid sirens were activated in cities across Israel, and people were told to take shelter. Multiple buildings have been destroyed as Israel's advanced air defenses were unable to block all missiles. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps says it's using new methods in this latest wave, which disrupted Israel's defense systems and caused them to target each other. Iranian targets included Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's residence and military sites. Israel Electric Corporation says it's working to restore electricity supply after damage to the grid in central Israel.
The government has not been able to speak clearly about such an off-ramp or about an exit strategy or about an endgame. Many options have been floated, from regime change to slowing down the nuclear program. So a lot of Israelis are more cheerful than they've been in a while, especially after the debacle of Gaza.
The Iranian missile volleys came in response to Israeli missiles that were launched at Iran in the early hours. Air defense systems in Tehran were activated. Israeli attacks have killed at least 228 Iranians and injured more than 1,200 others. Iran says Israel is killing civilians, including 70 women and children. The entire country is under attack. Israel's Air Force has claimed to have struck Mashhad airport, about 2,300 kilometers from Israel, making it the longest reach of Israeli attacks since Friday. Israeli strikes have targeted Iranian nuclear and missile facilities and assassinated military commanders and scientists. In the last 24 hours, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' intelligence chief Mohammad Kazemi and his deputy Hassan Muhaqiq were killed. Iran's foreign ministry building in Tehran was also hit. Flights are suspended across Iran. President Masoud Pezeshkian has warned Tehran's response will be more decisive and severe if Israel's hostile actions continue.
They have already passed all the red lines, and when they pass these red lines, Iran needs to take serious actions against that. The same model that was happening in Gaza and in Lebanon is being repeated by the Israelis here.
Israel triggered the crisis with its surprise attack on Friday. Iran says the aggression proves Israel does not abide by any humanitarian, legal or international rules. And as the back-and-forth strikes continue, more civilians are dying on both sides. Osama bin Javed, Al Jazeera.
Our correspondents are following all of the latest developments in this escalating conflict. In a moment, we'll be speaking to Noor O'Day in the Jordanian capital, Amman. But first, let's speak to Tawhid Asadi. He's in the Iranian capital, Tehran. Tawhid, Israel, I see, is now saying they've destroyed more than a third of Iran's surface-to-surface missile launches. They say they've achieved aerial superiority over Iran. Can you give us a sense of the situation on the ground there at the moment and perhaps the level of destruction of the targets that they've been aiming for?
Well, here in the capital, we see time and again the sounds related to the activation of the air defense system of the country And here in the capital, we hear these sounds of explosion related to the interception of flying objects from time to time. And this is the day 4 of from the initiation of the Israeli strikes that covered an extensive range of targets, including military and nuclear facilities across the country, but that's not just it. We had reports about civilian casualties in this regard, and we heard from the spokesperson of the government, Fatima Mohajerani, just a few seconds ago, saying that this is a war that has been imposed to us, and he asked for the solidarity among the people. But speaking of the casualties, speaking of the damages, we heard this report from Kermanshah city saying that one hospital named Farabi was attacked. Footages are coming out showing that the situation there is not really good, and that means that there are more and more civilian casualties with respect to the Israeli strikes. Here in the capital, earlier in the morning, we saw smoke coming out from one of the scenes that one of these strikes happened just today, but that's not it. Israelis have actually targeted different locations across the city, and at the same time we receive reports from the state TV saying that the air defense system in the capital is active and it's intercepting different flying objects.
Tawhid Asadi there with the very latest for us from the Iranian capital, Tehran. Thank you very much, Tawhid. Well, let's turn to Noor O'Day in the Jordanian capital, Amman. She's reporting from there because the Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel and the occupied West Bank. Noor, what exactly has Iran been targeting there? We've been hearing military sites, but also civilian areas.
Yes, I mean, both things are true. In Tel Aviv, in particular, remember on Friday, for example, the first day after the Israeli strikes on Iran, we saw strikes at the heart of Tel Aviv. Well, in that area, the Ministry of Defense and several security headquarters are also housed, and so there are neighborhoods in Tel Aviv and Tel Aviv district that are being quite heavily targeted. We're also seeing the targeting of Haifa, a very strategic city, a very strategic port in Israel, home to the Israeli Navy, but also home to the depots of petrochemicals, of the pipelines of gas, of an important part of the power grid in Israel. So all of those are sensitive areas. Now, the information we get is either provided by eyewitnesses who publish videos of the fires that ensue, of the missiles that fall, or the images that are cleared by the military sensor. And usually the most we can get if military targets are actually struck is a mention of sensitive areas, but there is no way for us to gauge that or get more specific information on that because no information is forthcoming. It's actually illegal to break the military censor orders.
Of course. Well, obviously Israel has air defenses that it's been very, very proud of. Some of these missiles, though, are obviously making it past the Iron Dome defense system. What do recovery efforts look like on the ground in Tel Aviv at the moment? Are people still being told to head to shelters, for instance?
Well, they're usually given up to 15 minutes of advanced warning. Right now, there are no warnings in place. The recovery efforts and the clearing of debris and looking for people under the rubble is a painstaking and long process. Yesterday, on Sunday, we saw that process in Bat Yam taking many hours, going into the evening hours and even in the morning hours to recover the bodies of those who were trapped under the rubble. The same applies today. We've seen buildings hit quite heavily in Bnei Brak and other districts of the larger Tel Aviv area. The recovery efforts continue, and that's why the number of casualties are rising, surpassing 20 since Friday, Nastasia.
Noor O'Day, they're reporting for us from the Jordanian capital, Amman. Thank you very much, Noor. Well, let's bring in Satara Sadeghi. She's a researcher at the University of Tehran. She joins us now from Isfahan in Iran. Satara, I know you've been speaking of strengthened unity in Iran. Many view this as an existential conflict for Iran, certainly for the current regime. How much support does the regime have at the moment and for its chosen response so far?
The Islamic Republic, which is the legitimate establishment ruling over Iran, voted by people and supported by the people, even though it has gone through problems or grievances from the people, it's still enjoying legitimacy and popularity among its population. I know you like to use imperialist narrative to try to describe the country as the regime with a legitimacy crisis, but Iran is a 90 million country. It's with almost a homogeneous population. It's not like, for example, Israel, where people have been moved from different races and nationalities and brought there, where people also, when you steal lands from other people, you have to have bunkers and shelters because they might come back and want to get back their lands from you. Iran does not have those problems, but Iran also does not have shelters under all these buildings. So when Israel starts attacking, the civilian casualties are very high. Israel is on purpose attacking civilians. The Israeli the so-called Minister of Defense, which I would call the Minister of Genocide, has warned Tehran residents, 14 million Iranians in Tehran, that they will have to pay a price. These aggressions, these rhetoric, these threatenings unifies people inside Iran, because Israel is not attacking the Islamic Republic. Israel is attacking Iran, and nation with 90 million people, with thousands of years of history, with a population that may disagree on economic practices, on foreign policy, but when it comes to the integrity and sovereignty of their nation, they agree on protecting it. You hear people that might not even be pro-government wanting to volunteer to, in any way possible that they can, to protect their government from foreign aggression. We're dealing with a regime that has been killing hundreds of thousands of children, women, defenseless, innocent civilians in Palestine, in Lebanon, and elsewhere. And now Iranians are proud that their country has been finally responding and retaliating these aggressions and showing the Israeli regime that it can defend itself. And unlike Israel, there is a population here that belongs to this land, that feels that this is their land and they have to protect it. It's not like Israelis with dual citizenships that want to flee the country and find shelter outside the country.
I'm curious about how Iranians view the motives of Israel here. Israel saying that it's about the nuclear program. Do Iranians buy that? Does the Iranian public think that this is about the nuclear program, or do they think it's about trying to effect regime change?
No, I don't think. The majority of Iranians do not buy that it's about the nuclear program. Israel is admitting that they have not been able to significantly harm nuclear facilities. They killed nuclear scientists not when they were working in nuclear facilities, but when they were in their houses with their families in the residential areas. And they have been killing civilians. Why would Israel bomb or target a hospital in the west of Iran, which has nothing to do with nuclear activities, or horses, or universities, or I don't know, like residential areas, if it was about nuclear program? Israel has been saying, and its allies in the U.S., in IAEA, the International Atomic Agency, have been saying since 2015 that Iran is 1 month away from developing a nuclear bomb. And it's a ludicrous joke that a country with the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons and with the highest record of war crimes and while at the same time carrying a genocide and a massacre of people in Palestine, in Lebanon, and Iran, claims that it's concerned about another independent country developing nuclear weapons, a country that has opened its nuclear facilities to international spectators. Remember that during Obama bragged about how it imposed the most severe inspection regime on any nuclear facilities in any country in the world. And Iran welcomed that because they wanted to show the world that we were not seeking nuclear weapons. So any comments coming from a country with the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons while carrying a genocide is, I think, it's baseless and ludicrous, and Iranians do not buy that. That just seems like a joke, and the Israeli officials have also have warned Tehrani's to leave the city or to be aware that they have to pay a price. So it's about killing civilians. It's about killing people and Iranians. It has nothing to do with the nuclear program.
Satara Sadeghi there, researcher at the University of Tehran, speaking to us from Isfahan. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, Satara. I now want to bring in Yossi Beilin. He's a former Israeli Minister of Justice. He's joining us now from Tel Aviv. Mr. Beilin, let me just start with what's happening on the ground and how people are perceiving that. There's been this ongoing barrage. What does the Israeli public think of the choice to initially launch these attacks on Iran right now?
Well, I did not try to have a public opinion poll, so you're asking me something that I don't have an exact answer. I did not see any public opinion poll since the beginning of the war. My feeling is that the general public opinion is very supportive of the war, knowing that it has to pay a price for it, for sure. But the point is that that Iran is the only country in the world which is preaching for wiping out Israel out of the map. And Israel, after all, is another member of the UN. And if such a country which demands the disappearance of Israel is going to have nuclear weapons, it is a real danger, because if it is espoused to the policy, then Israel is in a big problem. And this is why this war is justified by many Israelis. They know that if the United States is not part of it, there won't be a full answer to the issue of the nuclear weapons in Iran, but maybe we can defer the developing of such weapons in months or few years. But it is it is better than having such a situation tomorrow. So the support is there. There is always criticism. Unlike Iran, Israel is a democratic country, and there are those who oppose it, those who support it. But the general feeling, if I may say so, not in a scientific way, is very supportive.
How much influence does the US wield right now in Israel on this particular conflict? President Trump seems to think that there's still hope for diplomacy, but in his initial statements that he was viewing Israel's strikes as leverage for talks. As a former negotiator yourself, how would you advise him?
I would advise President Trump, if I may, to look at what happened in October '91, when President Bush invited the Middle Eastern countries and others to the Madrid conference. And this conference created a situation whereby there were bilateral talks between Israel and the Palestinians and Jordanians, Israel, Syria, Israel and Lebanon. And eventually, the two major developments out of Madrid then was the Oslo Agreement and peace between Israel and Jordan. I think that that '99, which was the end of the Cold War, the situation in which Saddam Hussein became a pariah, and there was a new president in the United States, President Clinton, who wanted to have achievements in the international arena, that was the right moment to have such a very important and a real milestone in Madrid. And I think that if today such a Madrid II conference is reconvened by the Americans and others, then we can really deal with the issue of ending the war in Gaza, freeing the hostages, resuming the talks between Israel and Lebanon, because there is another kind of government in Lebanon which is ready, apparently, to have an agreement with Israel, to have talks with other Arab countries towards peace, including Syria, if possible, and really to change the Middle East. Now, the issue between Iran and Israel may perhaps be solved not in such a conference, because Iran will not participate in a conference with Israel, but in the sideline of such a conference, in the bilateral talks between the United States and Iran. Eventually, there is no real reason why Israel and Iran cannot have agreements and peace between them. They were in peace. They had diplomatic relations in the past. We are not real enemies. We don't have any issues between us. And if they forget about eradicating Israel, I think that we can seriously talk.
So, Mr. Yossi Beilin there, former Israeli Minister of Justice, advocating for a more holistic approach to regional diplomacy right now. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much, Mr. Beilin.
Thank you very much.
Well, the UN's nuclear watchdog, in the meantime, is holding an urgent meeting in Vienna. The International Atomic Energy Agency's Board of Governors has been coming together at the request of Russia. It's concerned about these Israeli attacks against several Iranian nuclear facilities, like the Natanz site. The head of the agency says there's no sign of further damage at Natanz. Well, let's bring in Rory Challens. He joins me from Vienna. So, Rory, presumably some pretty large sighs of relief over there about the damage that's been done so far.
Yeah, we had the state of play given as the meeting here started from Rafael Grossi, the Director General of the IAEA. He basically brought everyone up to speed, the state of play as far as the IAEA understands it at Iran's nuclear facilities. Natanz, he said, which was attacked on Friday, several buildings destroyed on the surface level, but no indication of any destruction underneath the ground, which is where the main cascade hall is. Off-site radiation levels appear to be normal, according to the IAEA, but they are saying that underneath, in the chambers and halls of the facility, they expect that there is some kind of radiological and chemical contamination in the form of vapors or gases, basically the kind of stuff that you really don't want to breathe in. But as Grossi said, if you have the appropriate safety measures, breathing apparatus, then it is manageable. There is also an assessment of what's been going on at Isfahan, which was also attacked on Friday. 4 buildings damaged on the surface level, but as at Natanz, no increase in radiation levels off-site. Fordow apparently has not been attacked yet. But Grossi was saying that these shouldn't be attacked at all. The main or one of the main core responsibilities of the IAEA is to safeguard nuclear security. And if you have nuclear facilities that are having bombs falling on them, that is a massive compromise, obviously, of nuclear security. He says that he's ready to travel at a moment's notice to be on hand if necessary, and that the inspectors that have been on the ground in Iran obviously can't do their work right now, but they are ready to go back when the safety situation allows. We can hear a little bit more about what Grossi said earlier just now.
Military escalation threatens lives, increases the chance of a radiological release with serious consequences for people and the environment, and delays indispensable work towards a diplomatic solution for the long-term assurance that Iran does not acquire nuclear weapons. Consistent with the objective of the IAEA and its statute, I call on all parties to exercise maximum restraint to avoid further escalation.
Now, there was criticism of the IAEA and its Director General, Grossi, from the Iranian representative here, the ambassador here, Reza Najafi. He said that the IAEA and the DG had a clear responsibility to take preventive and deterrent measures when Iran wrote to them about the credible threats that it said that Israel had made against its safeguarded nuclear facilities. He also said that the IAEA should not allow past failures to prevent aggression to be followed by subsequent failures, as he put it, and there would be consequences for those aiding Israel. He also pointed out that Iran is a part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and that Israel has attacked a member, and Israel is not a member of that treaty, and it has attacked a member that is. But there are obviously doubts about Iran's future participation of that treaty, moves going on at the moment in Iran to perhaps withdraw from it.
Rory Challens there, keeping an eye on that meeting for us in Vienna. Thank you very much, Rory. Well, the Israel-Iran escalation is also expected to top the agenda at the G7 summit in Canada. US President Donald Trump has arrived in the Canadian Rockies, joining leaders of some of the world's biggest economic powers. The summit is set to be dominated by the Middle East crisis, as well as Trump's global tariffs. Well, let's speak to Mike Hanna. He's in Washington, D.C. Mike, so President Trump is now at the G7. He does seem to think that there are real hopes for diplomacy when it comes to Iran and Israel.
Yes, indeed. And President Trump appears to be saying that the way that the de-escalation can happen is by Iran agreeing to a new nuclear deal with the United States. He said as much on his way to the G7 summit, saying that such a deal is still possible. In fact, he said it is close indeed. Iran, for its part, has made very clear that there can be no negotiations while it is under attack by Israel. So that is a kind of stalemate. But Donald Trump still appearing optimistic that some sort of deal can be reached with Iran, which in turn would lead to a de-escalation of the conflict with Iran.
And Mike, it's being reported that President Trump was the one who vetoed an Israeli plan to kill Iran's supreme leader. I mean, that's quite the demonstration of U.S. influence.
Well, there have been numerous reports to this effect. There's been no formal confirmation from the Trump administration. But in a way, this is something that reveals the degree of the U.S. or the Trump administration's knowledge about Iran's nuclear ambitions. Now, a short while ago, the Director of National Intelligence, well, then the waiting to be appointed Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, told a Senate committee, well, she was asked directly, does Iran have nuclear weapons? She said no. She was then asked, is Iran intending to develop them and build them? She said no. Now, that is the position of U.S. national intelligence at the time. And that is something that President Trump clearly is aware of. The reason for this is very simple. The Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, has placed what is called a fatwa, a religious restriction on the development of nuclear weapons. If he were to be assassinated by Israel, this is something that could well open the path to the development of a nuclear weapon within Iran. So this is something that clearly, if the reports are correct about Trump's influence on Israel, is the knowledge that what stands between the development of a nuclear weapon is the Ayatollah himself. Now, what that also shows is, of course, Trump's influence on Israel, should the story in fact be correct.
Mike Hanna there, following all of that for us from Washington, D.C. Thank you, Mike.